The first time I saw Emily cry, she wasn't my maid of honor. She was just my best friend, sitting on my bedroom floor at 16, mascara running down her cheeks, whispering that her parents were getting divorced. Back then, I promised her I'd always be her safe place. That no matter what happened, I'd never let her feel small or unloved. I never thought I'd be the one to break that promise. My name is Claire, and this is the story of the day I humiliated my best friend in front of everyone I loved, only to learn the secret that changed everything I thought I knew about her, and about the man I married. It all started the night before my wedding. I was sitting in my hotel room, surrounded by white roses, silk ribbon, and the faint hum of my mom fussing over seating charts. I should have been happy, buzzing with excitement for the next day. But instead I was packing, my chest tight. "Claire, sit down," my mom said, exasperated. "You're wearing a groove in the carpet." Emily hasn't answered my texts all day," I said. "She's supposed to be here by now." "Maybe she's just nervous about tomorrow. Maid of honor duties can be stressful," Mom said, smoothing a napkin that didn't need smoothing. But it wasn't like Emily to go silent, not with me. When she finally walked in late, her face was pale. "Sorry," she murmured, avoiding my eyes. I wanted to be understanding. I really did. But instead, a sharp edge crept into my voice. "You're supposed to be helping me, Em. I've been freaking out all day." Her mouth trembled, like she wanted to say something. But instead, she just nodded and began arranging flowers. That should have been my first clue. Emily never stayed quiet when something was wrong. The next day, everything felt like a dream. Golden sunlight, soft music, the smell of fresh peonies. And yet, under it all, I felt uneasy. Emily was doing everything right, fixing my veil, smiling for photos, keeping me calm. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. And when Daniel, my soon-to-be husband, walked into the bridal suite to deliver a last-minute note, Emily froze. For a split second, her face cracked open, something like pain flashing across her expression, before she smoothed it over and busied herself with the bouquet. I tried to shake it off. This was my wedding day. The last thing I wanted was drama. But by the time the reception rolled around, my nerves were frayed. Maybe that's why I did it. It happened during the toasts. Emily stood up, her champagne flute trembling slightly in her hand. "I've known Claire since we were kids," she said, voice soft but steady. "And I can honestly say I've never seen her this happy." It was sweet. It should have been perfect. But all I could focus on was the way her eyes kept darting, just for a fraction of a second, toward Daniel. Something inside me snapped. When she finished her toast, I stood and took the mic with a too bright smile. "Thank you, Emily," I said. "And can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Emily is still single after all these years? Don't worry, Em. One day you'll find someone as good as Daniel. Well, maybe not that good." The guests laughed. Emily's face turned crimson. And for a moment, I felt powerful. Like I'd just reclaimed something I hadn't even realized I felt threatened by. But then I saw her eyes. Hurt. Devastated. Like I'd just ripped something open that I didn't even know existed. That was the last time I saw Emily smile that night. But the truth didn't hit me until hours later, after the cake had been cut and the last dance had ended, when Emily finally cornered me, tears streaking her face, and said words that made my stomach drop. "You think this is funny, Claire. You think I wanted to stand here and watch you marry the man I..." She stopped herself, choking back a sob. And in that moment, I knew. Emily had been in love with Daniel long before I ever said yes. Emily's words hung between us like smoke, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. I stared at her, my breath catching. "You what?" Her jaw tightened. She looked away, swiping at her tears. "Forget it," she whispered. "It doesn't matter anymore." But it did matter. It mattered so much that my chest ached. "Emily, you can't just say something like that and walk away," I said, stepping closer. What do you mean you didn't want to stand here and watch me marry Daniel? How long have you? She finally looked at me, and her expression was so raw, so filled with pain, it made my voice falter. Since before you even met him, she said quietly. It felt like the ground shifted beneath me. I wanted to be angry, furious even. But mostly, I just felt betrayed. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Her laugh was bitter. What was I supposed to say? Hey, Claire, the guy you're falling for. I liked him first, so back off. You could have said something, I shot back. Instead, you stood by my side through the whole relationship, through the engagement, and then you let me humiliate you tonight. Her shoulders slumped. You think I let you, she said. Claire, I showed up today because you asked me to, because I love you, even though watching you marry him felt like someone was peeling my skin off. Do you have any idea what that was like? Her words sliced through me. I didn't know what to say. When I finally returned to our honeymoon suite, Daniel was already sitting on the edge of the bed, tie loosened, watching me carefully. Everything okay? He asked. I wanted to tell him the truth right then, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I just nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was wide awake, lying next to my new husband, wondering how much of what we had was real, wondering if Emily had been silently loving him all along, and if maybe he'd noticed. The next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I found Daniel in the kitchen of our suite, still in his pajamas, pouring coffee. Did you ever have feelings for Emily? I blurted out. His hand froze mid-pour. What? You heard me, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Did you ever like her, even a little? He set the coffee pot down slowly and turned to face me. Claire, where's this coming from? She told me last night that she's been in love with you, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Daniel's expression shifted, shock, then something unreadable. She what? He said. She's been in love with you since before I met you, I said, my throat tightening. And I humiliated her in front of everyone last night without even knowing it. Daniel sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know, he said finally. I swear, Claire, if I had known. His voice trailed off, but something about the hesitation made my stomach twist. If you had known what? I pressed. Daniel's jaw tightened. If I had known, I would have talked to her before the wedding. I would have made sure she was okay. She's been your best friend since you were kids. She didn't deserve that. I wanted to believe him. But now there was a seed of doubt, growing quietly in my chest. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I scrolled through old group photos on my phone, vacations, birthday parties, dinners. And suddenly, I saw it. The way Emily always stood just a little closer to Daniel. The way her eyes softened when he laughed. The way she looked at him like he was the sun. How had I missed it all this time? The following week, when we got back from our short honeymoon, I called Emily. Can we talk? I asked. She was quiet for a long moment before agreeing. We met at our favorite cafe, the one where we'd spent countless hours during college. But this time, there was no easy laughter, no playful banter. Just silence. Finally, I spoke. Why didn't you tell me you loved him? Emily stared at her coffee. Because I didn't want to lose you, she said softly, and I knew telling you would change everything. It has changed everything, I said, my voice cracking. She flinched. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant for it to hurt you like this. I wanted to stay angry, but all I felt was exhausted. Do you still love him? I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. Yes, she admitted, but I'm trying not to. Her honesty was a knife, clean, sharp, final. And as I sat there, staring at the girl who had been my best friend for over a decade, I wondered if our friendship had just ended, or if this was the painful beginning of something new. That night, I found Daniel waiting for me on the porch. I saw Emily earlier, he said quietly. My heart stopped. You what? She came by, he said. Wanted to give me back the wedding gift she bought us. I felt my stomach drop. What did she say? Daniel hesitated for a long moment before answering. She said she can't be in our lives right now, that she needs space. And just like that, Emily was gone. But her absence wasn't clean. It left a shadow in our marriage, one that followed me into every room, every argument, every quiet night when I caught Daniel staring off into space. Was he thinking about her? Was he wondering if he'd chosen wrong? I didn't know. But I knew one thing: this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The reception was beautiful, but I was distracted. Every time my eyes landed on Emma, I felt a strange mix of guilt and defensiveness. She wasn't smiling as much as she usually did, and she kept glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking. When it was time for speeches, Emma stood and gave hers. Her voice was calm, measured, almost too calm. She began by talking about how she and Ethan had been friends for years, how they had been there for each other through so much, and how she was happy he had found someone who made him light up the way I did. The guests applauded, and I tried to relax, but then her tone shifted ever so. Mia, I can't compete with that, Ethan. My throat tightened as tears threatened. How do I build a future with someone whose past is still standing in the same room, looking at him like that? He closed the distance between us, cupping my face in his hands. Because my future is you, he said fiercely. Yes, Emma and I have history, but I chose you. I married you. Don't let our feelings undo what we have. I wanted to believe him. I wanted those words to be enough. But when I looked past him and saw Emma across the room, laughing softly with Daniel, and Ethan's eyes instinctively followed, I realized something terrifying. Love wasn't always enough to silence doubt. It happened sooner than I expected. 2 days later, Emma called. Mia, she said, her voice tense. Daniel, been in an accident. He's okay, but he's in the hospital. I don't have anyone else in town right now. Could you come? I didn't even think before saying yes. When I told Ethan, he didn't hesitate either. I'll drive, he said, grabbing his keys. At the hospital, Emma was sitting alone in the waiting area, her hands twisting in her lap. When she saw us, her face crumpled with relief. I didn't know who else to call, she admitted. Ethan knelt in front of her, his hands on hers. You did the right thing. I stood a few feet away, watching the two of them. The intimacy of the moment hit me like a blow, the way she leaned toward him, the way his voice softened for her. For hours, we waited together. Ethan stayed by Emma's side, fetching her coffee, packing the hallway with her when she couldn't sit still. I tried to stay calm, but inside, something ugly was twisting. When the doctor finally came out to say Daniel would be fine, Emma broke down, covering her face with her hands. Ethan pulled her into a hug before I could move. She held onto him like she would drown without him. And I just stood there, frozen. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was the realization that no matter how much Ethan said he chose me, there was still a part of him that belonged to her. That night after Daniel was settled and Emma went home, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every touch, every glance between them. When Ethan finally came to bed, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Do you still love her? I asked quietly. He stilled. Mia. Don't lie to me, not after everything we've been through. He sat down on the edge of the bed, his shoulders tense. I will always care about Emma. She was my first love, my best friend, but that's not the same as being in love with her. I wanted to believe him. But the image of him holding her in that waiting room wouldn't leave me. The next day, Emma came by to thank us. I couldn't have gotten through last night without you, she said, her eyes lingering on Ethan. The air between them felt charged, almost electric. After she left, I turned to Ethan. This isn't sustainable, I said, my voice sharp. We can't keep pretending this isn't affecting us. He ran a hand through his hair. What do you want me to do, Mia? Cut her out of our lives completely? Yes, I whispered. The word hung heavy in the air. Ethan stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. If that's what it takes to keep you, I'll do it. But the look in his eyes told me it wouldn't be that simple. A week later, Emma sent a message asking to meet, just her and me. When I walked into the cafe, she was already there, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. I wanted to talk to you, she said, woman to woman. I sat down cautiously. About what? About Ethan. About us. I need you to know that I'm not trying to take him from you, but if you keep pretending this isn't there, it's going to break you both. Her honesty hit me like a punch. I can't compete with a ghost, I admitted, my voice breaking. You don't have to, she said gently. But you do have to face the truth, so does he. Otherwise, one day, you'll wake up resenting him for something he can't change. I stared at her, realizing that she wasn't my enemy. But she was the mirror, reflecting the thing I was most afraid to admit. That Ethan might never stop loving her. The air between Ethan and me had been frayed for weeks, and after my conversation with Emma, I couldn't pretend anymore. That evening, I told him we needed to talk, really talk. He followed me to the rooftop terrace of our apartment building, the city lights flickering below, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Ethan, I said finally, my voice trembling, I can't do this anymore. This triangle with Emma. I feel like I'm losing you to a memory, to a love from your past that you can't forget. I need to know where we stand. I need you to choose. He ran a hand through his hair, jaw tight. Mia, you know I married you. I chose you. I love you. But do you want me? I demanded, stepping closer. Because I feel like every time she's around, a part of you goes to her, and I can't compete with that. I can't. Ethan's shoulders slumped. He took both my hands in his. Mia, listen to me. Yes, I love you. I married you. But Emma, she's part of my life in a way that can't be erased. I never stopped caring for her because she shaped me, because she was there when no one else was. But that doesn't mean my heart doesn't belong to you. It does, all of it. Tears pricked my eyes. Then prove it, show me, because words aren't enough anymore. He nodded, his expression fierce with determination. I will, you'll see. The next morning, when Emma came by to return a few of Daniel's belongings, Ethan didn't wait in the background. Instead, he stepped forward, standing between us. Emma, I need to be honest. I've cared about you for years. You've been a part of my life in ways no one else could ever be. But I am married to Mia now, and my life, my future is with her. I need you to understand that fully. Not just in words, but in your actions too. Emma looked at him, her eyes wide, searching for any hesitation but found none. She exhaled slowly. I understand. I won't interfere, I promise. The weight of it hit me. Ethan had chosen me, in front of her, in front of everything I had feared. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically become perfect. There were still lingering moments of doubt, quiet memories, and the occasional pang of jealousy. But something had shifted. Ethan was more attentive, more present. He made sure I knew I was his priority, not just in words, but in actions. He would text me during the day, check in, and make small, thoughtful gestures that reminded me that we were building our life together. Emma, too, began to fade into the background, not out of spite, but out of respect. She still mattered to Ethan as a friend, as someone he loved once, but she had accepted that the life he was building now was with me. One night, as we lay together in bed, Ethan turned to me, his hand tracing my arm. You scared me, he said softly. Seeing you doubt us, I realized just how much I take for granted. I hugged him tightly, letting all my fear, anger, and heartbreak melt away. I love you, I whispered. And I love you, he said, kissing my forehead. No past, no one else, just you, always you. For the first time in weeks, I believed him. Because love wasn't about never having doubts or past complications. It was about choosing each other over and over again, no matter what. And that night, lying in Ethan's arms, I finally understood that our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours. The following weekend, Ethan suggested we take a short trip to the lake house he'd grown up visiting with his family. I hesitated at first, the memories of Emma still fresh, the shadow of the past looming over us, but I agreed. Hopping some distance would help me breathe again. As we drove, the silence between us was heavy but not uncomfortable. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that things were fragile, delicate, but salvageable. When we arrived, the air was crisp, scented with pine and water. The lake shimmered under the late afternoon sun, a mirror for the sky above. Ethan held my hand as we walked down to the dock. For a moment, I felt safe, removed from the tension, the heartbreak, and the uncertainty. But the peace didn't last. Out of nowhere, Emma appeared at the end of the dock. I didn't expect to see you here, I said, my voice tight. She looked nervous, glancing from me to Ethan. I didn't know where else to go. I needed to see him one last time for closure. Ethan's expression softened, but he didn't step forward. Instead, he took my hand in his, subtly asserting that we were a unit. Emma, he said calmly, you've had your chance to say what you needed to say. This is our time now, Mia's time, our life. We both need you to respect that. Emma nodded, tears threatening, but she looked at me with something I hadn't expected. Gratitude. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant to hurt either of you. I felt a sudden swell of something I hadn't felt in weeks, empathy. Despite everything, despite the humiliation, the heartbreak, the sleepless nights, I realized she had loved him sincerely, just as I had fought to love him through the shadow of that past. I forgive you, I said softly, surprising even myself. But this ends here. Emma exhaled, a tear slipping down her cheek. It does, she said, finally letting go. After she left, Ethan turned to me, his eyes searching mine. You were amazing, he said. So strong, so fair, so courageous. I can't tell you how much that means to me. I rested my head against his shoulder, finally allowing the weight of the past few weeks to wash away. I was terrified I'd lose you, I admitted. And you almost did, he said, his voice gentle. But we didn't, because we chose each other. For the first time, I felt it fully, the solidity of our bond, the